The professor placed his materials on the desk at the center of the room. Jack noticed how the alien scales shifted from deep blue to a bright green as he prepared to speak. The classroom quieted down. Today we begin our study of biological diversity across the galaxy, Professor Vrel announced. His voice was deep and had a slight echo. We will examine how different environments shape life forms. Jack tried to focus, but the strong gravity made his body ache. He had been sitting for less than 10 minutes, but his back was already stiff. He shifted in his seat, trying to get comfortable. The professor displayed a large image of a star system on the screen. The Rigel system contains 12 planets with life. Each has created unique adaptations. Jack's neck felt tight. Without thinking, he did what he always did before his classes on Earth. He stood up to stretch. First, he raised his arms high above his head, reaching for the ceiling. His back made a soft, cracking sound as his spine aligned. It felt good. Next, he twisted his body to the left, and then to the right, causing more pops to sound from his joints. Finally, he bent forward at the waist, touching his hands to the floor while his hamstrings stretched. Halfway through this routine, Jack realized something was wrong. The room had gone completely silent. He looked up from his bent position and saw that every alien in the classroom had stopped moving. All eyes, stalks, and sensing organs were fixed on him. A tall, thin alien with purple skin had backed against the wall. A round creature with tentacles had changed from orange to pale white. Even the professor stood frozen, his scales now flashing bright red and yellow in alarm patterns. Jack slowly straightened up. "Is everything okay?" he asked. No one moved or spoke for several seconds. Finally, Professor Vrel approached cautiously. "Mr. Miller," he said in a careful voice, "are you breaking apart? Should we call medical assistance?" Jack was confused. Breaking apart? No, I was just stretching. This word didn't translate well. The aliens looked even more concerned. A brave student with a crystal-like body spoke up. "We heard your bones cracking. Are humans able to break and repair themselves? Is this normal?" Suddenly, Jack understood. What was everyday behavior for him looked scary to creatures with different bodies. The popping sounds his joints made must have seemed like breaking bones to them. "Oh, no, I'm fine," Jack explained quickly. "Humans stretch to relieve muscle tension. The sounds are just air bubbles in our joint fluid. It's completely normal and actually feels good." The aliens didn't look convinced. A small flying creature moved closer, curious now. "You deliberately make your body produce these sounds. Does it not damage your structure?" "Not at all," Jack said. "Our bodies evolved this way. When we sit too long, our muscles get tight. Stretching helps us stay flexible." Professor Vrel's scales had slowly shifted to a curious blue-green. "Fascinating. Your species voluntarily contorts itself as regular maintenance." The tension in the room began to ease, but Jack could see he had accidentally turned himself into the day's lesson. Students were taking notes and recording him with small devices. "Perhaps," the professor said, addressing the class, "we should adjust to today's curriculum. Mr. Miller has provided us with an unexpected opportunity to study human physiology." Jack felt his face grow warm as all attention remained on him. His attempt to blend in had backfired completely. Now he was the subject of intense scientific interest. "Could you demonstrate more human stretching?" the professor asked. "For educational purposes, of course." Jack sighed. This was going to be a very long first day at the Galactic Academy. "I guess I could show you a few more stretches," Jack said, feeling awkward as 30 different alien species watched him intently. Professor Vrel moved to the side of the room and gestured toward the open space in the center. "Please, Mr. Miller." The class would benefit greatly from this demonstration. Jack walked to the center platform, aware of every eye, stalk, and sensory organ following his movements. He took a deep breath and began showing some basic human stretches. "This is called a neck roll," he explained, moving his head in a circle. It helps relieve tension after looking down at screens or books. The sound of his neck popping caused several students to flinch. A blob-like creature in the front row changed from green to a worried yellow color. "And these are shoulder rolls," Jack continued, moving his shoulders in circles. More popping sounds followed. A tall, insect-like student raised one of its 4 arms. Question: does the human feel pain during these procedures? Not at all, Jack assured them. It actually feels good. Like scratching an itch or drinking water when you're thirsty. This explanation caused more confusion. A small floating alien with large eyes whispered loudly to its neighbor, "Humans feel pleasure from self-damage." How bizarre. Professor Vrell's scales flickered with interest. "Mr. Miller, perhaps you could explain the evolutionary purpose of this behavior." Jack tried to think of how to explain something so basic. "Well, humans evolved as runners and hunters. We're designed to move a lot. When we sit still for too long, our muscles get tight and our joints get stiff. Stretching helps keep our bodies working properly." A student with 6 limbs and blue fur spoke up. "In our culture, changing body shape is only done during growth cycles or mating rituals. To see it done casually is unsettling." Jack hadn't considered how his normal movements might appear to beings with completely different bodies and cultures. "I'm sorry if I alarmed anyone. On Earth, people stretch all the time, before exercise, after sitting, when we wake up. It's completely normal." Professor Vrell moved closer, examining Jack with professional interest. "No need for apologies. This is precisely why the exchange program exists, to learn about our differences." He turned to the class. "What we are witnessing is a perfect example of how evolutionary paths create not just physical differences, but cultural misunderstandings." A student with rock-like skin raised a heavy arm. "Do all Earth creatures stretch like this?" "Many mammals do," Jack explained. "Dogs, cats, even wild animals like lions stretch regularly. It's actually something humans have in common with many Earth animals." This information seemed to interest the class even more. Students were recording Jack's movements and taking detailed notes. Professor Vrell seemed pleased with this unexpected lesson. "Class, this demonstrates why direct observation is superior to theoretical study. Who would have thought that humans regularly reconfigure their joint positions as maintenance?" Jack wanted to correct the professor's description, but decided it wasn't worth complicating things further. A small bird-like alien approached Jack cautiously. "Can other species learn to stretch like humans? Could I try it?" Jack looked at the alien's completely different body structure. 4 wings, no visible joints, and a flexible exoskeleton. "I'm not sure if it would work the same way for you. Your body is built very differently." Professor Vrell intervened. "Perhaps we should not experiment without proper medical supervision. For today, observation is sufficient." As the class continued with questions about human physiology, Jack realized something important. He had accidentally become an ambassador for Earth in a way no diplomatic training could have prepared him for. These aliens weren't just learning about human stretching. They were forming their first impressions about humanity itself. "Next time," Jack thought to himself, "I'll just sit still and deal with the stiffness." By the next morning, news of Jack's strange body reconfiguration had spread throughout the academy. As he walked to his first class, he noticed aliens stopping to look at him. Some whispered to each other, while others quickly moved out of his way. "There he is, the stretching human," a small green alien said to its friend as Jack passed. Jack kept his head down and walked faster. He hadn't expected to become famous on his second day. His plan had been to blend in and learn quietly, but that chance was now gone. In the dining hall, Jack grabbed his breakfast tray and looked for an empty table. The food looked strange. Purple cubes, blue bubbling liquid, and something that moved slightly when he poked it. He sighed and sat alone. "May I join you?" a voice asked. Jack looked up to see a tall, slender alien with smooth silver skin and large, kind eyes. "Sure," he said, relieved that someone wanted to sit with him. I'm Nera, the alien said, sitting down gracefully. I'm from Lyra 6. You caused quite a stir yesterday. Jack groaned. I didn't mean to. I was just stretching. It was fascinating, Nera said. My species cannot bend our center column at all. The idea of deliberately making your joints pop is unusual to us. Before Jack could respond, 3 more aliens approached their table. Can we sit here? Asked a short, furry creature with 4 arms. Without waiting for an answer, they all sat down and stared at Jack. I'm Zorix, said the furry one. These are Pell and Cracks. Is it true humans can twist their limbs in complete circles? Jack shook his head. No, we have limits. Our shoulder joints can rotate pretty far, but not in complete circles. Show us, Pell demanded. This alien had scale-like skin and spoke in short, direct sentences. Jack felt uncomfortable. I'd rather not be a spectacle while eating. Before they could press further, a loud announcement came over the speakers. All students report to the main hall for a special assembly. Jack followed the crowd to the enormous main hall. Thousands of aliens filled the space, creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. At the front, the academy director, a tall being made of what looked like living crystal, stood waiting. Students of the Galactic Academy, the director began, voice echoing through the hall. As you know, we welcome our first human exchange student this year. It has come to my attention that there has been significant curiosity about human physiology. Jack sank lower in his seat, feeling his face grow hot. Therefore, the director continued, we have adjusted today's schedule. Professor Vrel will present a special lecture on human biology and culture this afternoon. Attendance is optional but encouraged for better interspecies understanding. As the assembly ended, students turned to look at Jack. Some pointed, others waved, but all seemed interested. Professor Vrel approached Jack as students filed out. Mr. Miller, would you be willing to assist with my lecture? It would be most helpful to have a real human demonstrate while I explain. Jack wanted to refuse, but he remembered why he had come to the academy. To represent Earth and build connections with other species. Maybe this was his chance to do just that, even if it wasn't how he expected. Okay, he agreed. But can we make it educational, not just me doing tricks? Professor Vrel's scales turned a pleased blue color. Of course. This is science, not entertainment. That afternoon, Jack stood on stage in the lecture hall, facing hundreds of curious aliens. Professor Vrel began his presentation with a detailed diagram of human anatomy. Notice the flexible spine, he explained, pointing to the image. Unlike many species, humans have evolved to be extremely adaptable in their movements. Jack took a deep breath. If he was going to be the subject of study, he would make sure these aliens learned something valuable about humanity. He stepped forward and began to explain human adaptability in his own words. 2 weeks passed since Jack's accidental fame began. The special lecture had been a success, with over 300 students attending. Now, as Jack walked the curved hallways of the academy, fewer aliens stopped to stare. Some even greeted him by name. Good morning, Jack, called Nera, the silver-skinned Liran who had become his first friend. Are you ready for physical adaptation class? Jack nodded. I brought my notes from yesterday. Professor Clax said there would be a practical demonstration today. They walked together toward class, passing groups of diverse aliens. Jack had learned to recognize many species now. The tall, thin Vortians with their 4 eyes, the round, bouncy Glordians who changed colors with their moods, and the plant-like Florans who needed to stand in special light chambers between classes. Jack, wait up, called a voice behind them. Turning, Jack saw Zorix, the furry 4-armed alien who had bombarded him with questions that first week. To his surprise, Zorix had become one of his regular companions. I heard humans have different stretching routines for different times of day, Zorix said excitedly. Is that true? Jack smiled. What had once been awkward questioning now felt like genuine curiosity. Kind of. Some humans stretch more in the morning to wake up their bodies. Others stretch before exercise to prevent injury. Fascinating. Zorix's fur rippled with interest. My species must vibrate our fur 3 times daily to keep it healthy, but the routine never changes. As they entered the classroom, Jack noticed something new. In the front row, a group of 4 students from different species were doing what looked like stretching. A tall Vortian was carefully rotating its upper body. A Glorbian was extending and contracting its round form. Even a crystalline prism was carefully bending its normally rigid structure. Professor Clax, a wise old alien with skin that looked like flowing water, noticed Jack's surprise. "Ah, Mr. Miller, your influence spreads. Several students have been experimenting with adapted stretching routines for their own physiologies." Jack couldn't believe it. "They're stretching. Isn't that uncomfortable for them?" "At first, yes," the professor explained. "But they discovered that controlled flexibility exercises, adapted for their specific anatomies, provide benefits. The Vortians report improved circulation. The Glorbians find their color changes more controlled." During class, Professor Clax invited students to share their experiences with adaptive movement. A brave Florin stepped forward. "My species typically remains rooted in one position," the plant-like alien explained, its leafy appendages rustling. "But I tried gentle swaying movements, inspired by human stretching. I found my nutrient absorption improved by 12%. Other students shared similar discoveries. A rock-like Granitian had found that small, controlled movements prevented crystal formations in its joints. A fluid-based Aquarian demonstrated how it now practiced controlled shape changing to maintain membrane elasticity. After class, Jack sat with his growing circle of friends in the recreation area. The space featured adaptable furniture that changed to accommodate different body types. "I never thought my stretching would start a trend," Jack said, still amazed by what he had seen. Nara's large eyes blinked thoughtfully. "That's how cultural exchange works. We learn from differences." Zorix nodded all 4 of his arms in agreement. "Before you came, many species believed their way of movement was the only correct one. You showed us alternatives." A Prism student named Kelks joined their table, its crystal body catching the light. "My instructor was against my experiments with flexibility," it said in a musical voice. "But after seeing the benefits, they are now encouraging controlled bending for all juvenile prisms." Jack felt a warm sense of pride. What had started as an embarrassing misunderstanding was becoming something meaningful. He wasn't just learning about alien cultures. He was helping them see new possibilities within their own bodies. "Perhaps," said Nara quietly, "this is why the exchange program exists. Not just to learn facts about each other, but to challenge what we believe is possible." Jack smiled. For the first time since arriving, he felt like he truly belonged at the academy. 3 months into his time at the academy, Jack saw a colorful announcement on the main message board. The screen flashed with moving images and translated text. "Annual Cultural Exchange Fair. Share your world." "What's the cultural fair?" Jack asked Nara as they walked to lunch. "It's our biggest event of the year," Nara explained, her silver skin reflecting the hallway lights. "Every student creates a display about their homeworld. There's food, music, art, and demonstrations. It's how we learn about each other beyond just classroom study." Jack's mind raced with ideas. This was his chance to show the real Earth to his new friends, beyond just his stretching routine. "The fair is next week," Zorix added, bouncing alongside them on his furry legs. "Will you participate, Jack? No human has ever had a booth before." "Definitely," Jack said. "I'll need to plan something good." For the next few days, Jack spent his free time preparing. He asked the academy technicians to help him create simple holograms of Earth landscapes, mountains, oceans, deserts, and cities. He recorded messages from his family and friends back home, showing normal human life. But the centerpiece of his display would be movement. After seeing how interested everyone was in human stretching, Jack decided to showcase the many ways humans use their bodies. The day of the fair arrived. The Academy's main hall had been transformed into a colorful marketplace of alien cultures. Booths lined the walls, each representing a different world. Strange smells, sounds, and sights filled the space. Jack set up his Earth booth between a water tank where aquarians performed bubble speech and a gravity-free zone where flying species demonstrated aerial dances. "Welcome to Earth," Jack said as students gathered around his booth. He showed the holograms of Earth's diverse environments and played videos of human cities and nature. "But the most interesting part of human culture," Jack continued, "is how we use movement not just for survival, but for joy, art, and health." He had prepared a demonstration area with enough space for him to move freely. First, he showed basic stretches, now familiar to many students. Then he demonstrated simple yoga poses, explaining how humans used controlled movement and breathing together. "This is called downward dog," he said, forming an inverted V shape with his body. "It stretches the back and legs while strengthening the arms." A crowd gathered, watching with fascination. Even some professors stopped to observe. Next, Jack showed dance moves from different Earth cultures: a simple ballet position, a hip-hop step, and a traditional folk dance turn. Humans dance to express emotions, tell stories, and celebrate, he explained, demonstrating the simple spin. Every culture on Earth has its own dance forms. Finally, Jack showed basic martial arts movements. "These are fighting techniques that became art forms," he said, throwing a slow, controlled punch followed by a kick. Students pressed closer, amazed by the variety of movements. Questions came from all directions. Do all humans know all these movements? Does it hurt to bend that way? Can you teach us simple human dances? For hours, Jack demonstrated and explained. He showed curious aliens how to modify human movements for their different body types. A group of Vortians tried a simple dance step. Some brave prisms attempted gentle yoga poses, their crystal bodies glinting in the light. Professor Vrell visited Jack's booth late in the day. "Impressive display, Mr. Miller. Your booth has the most visitors of any first-year student." Jack smiled, tired but happy. "I wanted to show that human movement isn't just about stretching or exercise. It's part of our art, our fun, our way of connecting with each other." As the fair ended, Jack realized something important had changed. When he first arrived, his stretching had scared everyone. Now, these same aliens were eagerly trying human movements themselves. Perhaps, Jack thought as he watched a small Glorbian attempt a careful twirl, understanding really does begin with the body. The final week of the term arrived quickly. Jack stood outside the main lecture hall, waiting to give his end-of-term presentation. The past months had changed him in ways he never expected. "Nervous?" asked Nara, standing beside him. Her silver skin glowed softly in the hall's light. Jack nodded. "A little. 3 months ago, I just wanted to blend in. Now I'm giving a presentation about human movement to the whole academy." The doors opened, and Jack walked to the center platform. The hall was packed with students and teachers from all years. Even the Crystal Form director sat in the front row. "Thank you all for coming," Jack began, his voice steadied despite his nerves. "When I first arrived here, I caused quite a stir by doing something completely normal for humans, stretching before class." Soft laughter rippled through the room. What had once been shocking was now a familiar story. "Today, I want to share what I've learned about movement across species and how our different bodies shape our cultures." On the large screen behind him, Jack showed images of various aliens performing movements natural to their species. The fluid grace of the Aquarians, the precise vibrations of the Vortians, the slow, powerful shifts of the Granitians. Humans evolved on a planet with strong gravity and changing landscapes, Jack explained. We needed flexible bodies to climb, run, swim, and hunt. Our stretching comes from this history. He demonstrated the simple stretch, no longer worried about the popping sounds his joints made. The audience watched with interest, not fear. But what amazed me most during my time here wasn't learning about your movements. It was seeing how many of you adapted human stretching to benefit your own species. Jack invited several students to join him on stage. Zorix demonstrated how he had created a fur vibration technique combined with gentle stretching. Kelk's the prism showed how controlled flexing had improved the clarity of its crystalline structure. These adaptations show something important, Jack continued. While our bodies may be different, we all share the need to maintain and improve them. The methods may vary, but the goal is the same. Professor Vrell stepped forward, his scales a proud blue color. Mr. Miller's influence has extended beyond cultural exchange. The medical department reports a 15% decrease in joint-related complaints among students who adopted modified flexibility routines. The director rose, the light playing through its crystal form. This exemplifies the purpose of our academy, not just to learn about our differences, but to find unexpected common ground. Mr. Miller came here to study us, but he also taught us. After the presentation, students and teachers gathered in the central garden for an end-of-term celebration. Food and drinks from dozens of worlds were shared. Jack found himself surrounded by friends from species he couldn't have named 3 months ago. "Will you return next term?" asked Zorix, all 4 arms holding different snacks. "Definitely," Jack replied. "The Earth Exchange Program approved my extension. I'll be back." Nera's eyes brightened. "Excellent news. I've been accepted for the reverse exchange. I'll be visiting Earth next year." "You'll have to try yoga," Jack said with a smile. "It's like stretching, but more involved. You'd be amazing at it with your flexible spine." As the evening continued, Jack watched the gathering with a sense of wonder. Across the garden, he could see small groups of aliens showing each other movements from their homeworlds. A Floran was teaching a Glorbian how to sway properly. A team of prisms was working with Vortians on a joint movement display. What had started with one human stretch before class had grown into something much bigger. A genuine exchange of culture through movement. Professor Vrell approached with a small device, a gift, Mr. Miller. It contains recordings of movement patterns from 50 different species. "For your research." Jack accepted it gratefully. "Thank you, Professor. I came here to learn about the galaxy, but I ended up learning more about what connects us all." As stars appeared in the Academy's transparent dome ceiling, Jack realized he was no longer an outsider. He had found his place among the stars. The committee members exchanged looks that even humans could recognize as uncertainty. "We will consider your proposal," Nivral finally said. "In the meantime, we request permission to conduct further studies on human physical and psychological responses to danger. We must understand how your species normalizes conditions that would traumatize most sentient beings." As the meeting concluded, Jack whispered to Emma, "I never thought eating ice cream on a swing set might jeopardize our place in the galaxy." 3 months after the diplomatic crisis began, a breakthrough finally arrived. The Galactic Union had spent weeks conducting careful studies of human physiology, psychology, and history. Today, the Union Council would vote on Earth's final classification. The meeting took place aboard the Union's primary vessel, a massive ship floating in Earth orbit. Ambassador Linda Collins arrived with Jack Miller, Emma Winters, and Dr. Ben Howard, Earth's leading xenobiologist. They entered the circular chamber where representatives from 17 alien species waited. "Welcome, Earth delegation," said Supreme Counselor Zev Tor, an ancient Vexari whose environmental suit appeared more elaborate than others of his kind. "Today we determine the future relationship between humanity and the Galactic Union." Linda stepped forward. "We appreciate the Council's thorough consideration. We hope for a decision that allows open exchange between our worlds." "Before voting begins," announced Zev Tor, researcher Zelvax will present final findings from the Earth Assessment Team. Zelvax, who had observed human activities for months, moved to the center of the chamber. The lights dimmed as a 3-dimensional display appeared, showing Earth rotating slowly. "Esteemed council members," began the alien, Our initial assessment classified Earth as a Class 13 environment requiring quarantine. After extensive study, we propose a modification to this classification. Jack and Emma exchanged hopeful glances. Humans evolved on a world that would eliminate most sentient species, continued Zelvax. Their planet experiences extreme temperature variations, powerful atmospheric disturbances, constant tectonic activity, and dangerous wildlife. Yet instead of developing fear responses, humans adapted uniquely. The display showed images of human achievements throughout history. Early humans creating fire, ancient civilizations building monuments, modern cities rising from challenging landscapes. Most significantly, Zelvax explained, humans do not perceive their environment as inherently dangerous. What we classify as Class 13 hazards, they experience as normal conditions. The misty alien from the previous meeting floated forward. This does not address our concern about contamination of safety standards. With respect, Counselor, replied Zelvax, our psychological assessment suggests humans possess an adaptation we have not previously encountered in spacefaring species, balanced risk assessment. The display shifted to show brain scans. Humans recognize danger but calculate acceptable risk rather than avoiding all potential harm. This is not recklessness, but a sophisticated evolutionary advantage that allowed them to thrive in conditions that would paralyze other species with fear. Dr. Howard nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. We don't ignore danger, we manage it, which allows us to explore, experiment, and advance even in challenging environments. Murmurs spread through the council chamber as the aliens discussed this concept. Consider their medical practices, continued Zelvax. What initially appeared barbaric is actually profound compassion combined with calculated risk. They accept temporary discomfort to achieve healing. The plated alien spoke up. What of their young? They expose offspring to hazards. They gradually introduce challenges to develop resilience, Emma explained. Children learn to assess and manage risk through controlled exposure, building confidence and capability. After hours of discussion, Supreme Counselor Zevtor called for the final vote. The chamber fell silent as each species registered their decision. Jack held his breath, knowing Earth's future relationship with the galaxy hung in the balance. Finally, Zevtor spoke. By majority decision, the Council reclassifies Earth not as a quarantine zone, but as a protected cultural heritage site. Humans will be welcomed into the galactic community with special designation as a Class 13 adapted species. Linda smiled broadly. Thank you, Counselor. What does this designation mean for our interaction with other worlds? It means, explained Zevtor, that while other species may visit Earth with proper training, humans venturing to other worlds will carry advisory notices. Your natural resilience is now recognized as a unique evolutionary path rather than a threat. As the Earth delegation prepared to return home with news of their acceptance into the galactic community, Nivrel approached Jack privately. There remains one human behavior our scientists cannot explain, the alien admitted. Despite understanding risk, your species deliberately consumes bitter plant extracts containing stimulants each morning. Jack laughed. Coffee? That's easy. Without it, we'd face something truly terrifying. A Class 15 threat? Asked Nivrel, alarmed. Worse, Jack replied with a smile. Monday mornings. The alien's translator crackled with confusion, but Jack noticed something remarkable, a pattern of lights on Nivrel's suit that he'd never seen before. If he didn't know better, he'd have sworn the alien was laughing.